So I hope that you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving celebration with whoever you gathered. And I also hope that you took some time during those celebrations to offer a little bit of thanks beyond offering just gratitude for the food with a ritualistic blessing, which is important, but Thanksgiving is a chance to take that to another step. There are many different ways that people offer gratitude at Thanksgiving gatherings. Some offer a pre-written blessing that they read as a community, as a group. Some go around the table and each have a person reflect on one thing they're grateful for. One Thanksgiving I was actually a part of a number of years ago had some people bring a piece of historic American literature that reflected on great moments of genuine sharing amongst different cultures that make up the tapestry of America. And it was really, really amazing. I had this Thanksgiving twice. It was in Jerusalem with a family who had immigrated to Israel, made Aliyah. And their tradition was to bring this piece of literature, every year a different one, but that reflected on just the bounty of America. But I read another thing that a rabbi did this year at his table that I thought was interesting. Rabbi Sion Seton asked those gathered at the Thanksgiving table if anyone had experienced jealousy lately. He said, jealousy? Why would you want to talk about jealousy when you're supposed to give thanks? But jealousy is something, if you think about somebody else, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a second. Think about all that I have. But the reality is jealousy is one of those traits that's so pervasive and powerful. Who amongst us hasn't felt the sting of endless comparison? That family, you know, the colleague who's advancing faster, the neighbors with more money or a better front yard, the mom or dad who seems to have everything perfectly planned for their kids with everything lined up. Envy has always been a feature of the human experience, and unfortunately, social media has amplified it unrelentingly. The Torah understands how powerful jealousy is. If we jump for just a moment to the 10 Commandments, when it comes to the 5 commandments that are directed ben adam lechavero, between two people, you get, you shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shouldn't bear false witness because it could lead to somebody else getting punished for the wrong thing. All of these things are like pretty serious, like things that you do to another person. And then the final statement of the 10 Commandments, you shall not covet your neighbor's house, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, slave, ox, donkey, anything that's your neighbor's. You say, wait a second, if we're establishing rules about how we treat one another, the first 4 makes sense when we're setting up a society. Murder, adultery, stealing, bearing false witness, yeah. But why can't I covet, be jealous? It's something in my head or my heart. I haven't done anything to anybody, right? I didn't hurt anybody. So why would it be the last of the 10 Commandments, the one that sums it up? And if you believe in the idea of when you study something, you're always going to remember the first and the last, then you would think that you want the important things to be the first and the last. What's the first commandment? What? I am the Lord your God. One God type of thing, right? Okay? What's the last one? Jealousy. Perhaps it's obvious. Maybe it's obvious and I don't need to, I'm saying something, but it's jealousy taken to its fullest extent that can lead to all those other things. And our Torah portion, for that matter, the book of Genesis, grasps this deeply. But instead of dispensing platitudes that we can rise above it, the Torah confronts it and says, no, this is just part of being human. Deeply harmful impulse that we have to face. This week's Torah portion, Vayetze, dives headfirst into envy. At its heart stands Jacob, a man surrounded by envy, but seemingly relatively untouched. His story compels us to ask, what would it take for us to just say, I have enough? In Vayetze, the rivalry between the 2 sisters whom Jacob marries, Rachel and Leah, takes center stage. Jacob loves Rachel, but she's barren. Leah bears children, but is not loved. Their longing for what the other has, Jacob's love or the ability to bear children, turns their relationship into a powerful contest, even reflected in their children's names. Something I taught about last year, if you remember. This is envy at its most tragic, where authentic connection is replaced by the desire to dispossess and surpass the other. In the same portion, Jacob's growing wealth becomes a source of envy for his father-in-law Laban and Laban's sons. Jacob begins as an indentured servant, enriching Laban through decades of hard work, but when Jacob finally prospers on his own, Laban and his sons resent him, not because they don't have a lot, but because they can't bear to see him with more. Yet in our Torah portion and those that followed, Jacob himself seems to continue to remain untouched. In fact, in next week's Torah portion, Jacob embodies the opposite of envy when he reunites with his twin Esau. And after Jacob gifts Esau significant wealth, their exchange reveals the depth of Jacob's transformation. Esau declares, "I don't need what you have, I have a lot." But Jacob says, "I have it all. I have it all." What on earth could the Torah mean when Jacob says, "I have it all"? When the story makes relatively clear that Esau has more servants, more cattle, more livestock. Esau has land that is his. Jacob's a wandering person with a tribe. Dr. Michal Biton explains this and says, the Torah isn't a self-help book. It doesn't offer tidy solutions for envy. But in Jacob's story, we can explore what it means to grow into a sense of enough. As Vayetze begins, Jacob is at his lowest ebb. The pampered son, beloved to his mother and blessed by his father, suddenly finds himself an impoverished refugee, utterly alone, lying in the middle of nowhere, on the hard ground with a stone for a pillow. Jacob faces a choice: to let his loss define him, or to climb the ladder and take the steps towards what the Jewish German psychoanalyst Erich Fromm described as the mode of being. Michal Biton explains how Fromm distinguishes between two ways of living: having or being. In the having mode, we tie our identities to possessions, status, external validation, with how many letters come after your name, with the belief that accumulating them brings happiness. But we remain anxious and unfulfilled, forever wanting more and comparing ourselves to others. The being mode, by contrast, focuses on growth, introspection, and connection. Not acquiring, but transforming. Unfortunately, most of us are stuck in the mode of having, whispering to us that happiness is one purchase away. In this world, it's natural for Thanksgiving to be immediately followed by Black Friday, which used to be the next day. Then, at one point, Black Friday wasn't the next morning, but at midnight between Thursday and Friday. And people lined up and mowed each other down. Does that still happen? Trampling each other? Not as much, because we have Amazon. Because thanks to Jeff Bezos and others like him, Black Friday deals begin 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. Matter of fact, as soon as they take down the Halloween decorations, it's Black Friday deals. It gives you the shivers, right? Kathleen? I see you going, ugh, ugh, like, and how many of us, I can tell you for one, I get sucked into it, and I put all these things in my Amazon cart. And then I push save for later, delete, save for later, delete, save for later, delete, right? Because I'm convinced that I need more because it's going to make me happier. Even our relationships can be treated as possessions, valued for what they give us. But to Erich Fromm, but to be, Erich Fromm says, is to cultivate what cannot be taken away. generosity, wisdom, love, and connection with God and the world. Jacob's defining moment comes precisely when he has nothing. Stripped of everything, Jacob refuses to let despair consume him. Instead, he dreams of angels ascending and descending, and he hears God's voice, and he reorients his life. Jacob begins to ground himself, not in what he has, but in who he is, and even more, who he can become. He falls in love, labors for years not to accumulate wealth, but to secure a family and a relationship. Michal Biton concludes saying, this shift from having to being is what I believe makes Jacob uniquely resistant to envy, as everyone around him suffers from it. When we stop defining ourselves by what we possess, it becomes easier to resist craving what others have. And the Torah doesn't ask us to be angels. No. It calls us to be honest and aspirational. The journey to enough begins where Genesis leads us by seeing ourselves in its stories of real people. The envy, the rivalry, and longing for what others have live within us too. From there, the journey continues as we dare to imagine that something else is possible. The freedom from having enough. Shabbat Shalom.